Hello and welcome. I'm Devin.
And I'm Darren.
And this is 10-Minute Tabletop News, where we cover the 3 biggest stories in tabletop in 10 minutes or less so you can get on with your day, building characters, stacking dice, and playing the game. The State of Play with Darrington Press. Darrington Press.
State of Press.
State of Press, that's
State
right.
of Press.
Darrington Press is the game company that has spun out of Critical Role.
Yes, and they are releasing their own fantasy-based RPG. Which,
Exactly. They're actually releasing 2.
Yeah.
One is Setting List. That's the Illuminated Worlds. D6 pool system. Really good for creative narrative arcs. Sounds like a lot of fun. But the one that they've released almost no information about is Daggerheart.
Yes.
Now, Daggerheart's supposed to be a fresh fantasy RPG. That's all we get.
Yeah.
That's all we get. But
They were promoting that it was going to be a lot of information and a lot of things that we could get from Gen Con. So they're definitely doing a big Gen Con push. I think
the Darrington's Press first time at Gen Con is going to be this year.
Yeah.
But this is huge. The reason this is important is Critical Role is the largest actual play show for Dungeons & Dragons. And then below that you have Taz, Dimension 20, NADPOD, etc. But they're also the biggest AP collaborator with Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, and they're branching off and finally doing their own thing in their own IP, which could be in direct competition with Wizards of the Coast.
I can't imagine that Critical Role won't be running this game on their channel. Because here's the thing, if you make your own game and you have this massive audience, wouldn't you want to use that audience to kind of highlight and play through and kind of promote your game?
Yeah, and we talked about this in previous episodes too. I think one of the biggest draws of Critical Role is the cast members and the people who play within the Critical Role, world of Exandria. So I think they have a lot of pull being able to kind of pivot into their own game and promote their own game, and I think people would still tune in and watch.
Now, we know that they had to do 8 reprints of Monster of the Week when it was highlighted by the Adventure Zone.
Yeah.
It was one of the... It literally took that game from 0 to 1, right?
Yeah.
It was massive. And I think Critical Role can do this with any game they play. I mean, Honey Heist became very, very popular because they played it. I think they're going to be able to do this with their own game.
Yeah, and in addition to that, they're releasing a bunch of other board games and
tons of
deck
board
building
deck building games.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff come from Darrington Press, but I'm very intrigued to see how does creating these games relate towards their actual play, their audience, and can they actually push an audience into their games? Because traditionally, a thing I've heard anecdotally is that a lot of people that watch Critical Role don't play D&D.
Interesting.
Right?
Wow.
They watch it, and that might be because they can't find a game, etc.
Yeah.
But we do know that Wizards of the Coast love the fact that they were able to do not Tal'Dorei, Wildmount as one of the settings. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
In other news, talking about big wins, Avatar: The Last Airbender, the RPG, is getting its first expansion sourcebook.
Yeah, they're going to be expanding into the Legend of Korra content. So if you're a fan of Legend of Korra, it looks like it's going to be giving you a lot.
Love
Legend of Korra.
I love all Avatar.
Yeah, same.
Except the James Cameron one.
And I think one of the cool things about it is going to be giving you a little bit extra lore into Republic City itself. So that is very exciting. But, what makes it important and what makes it a big deal is that, it's a good sign that these sales are healthy enough to push an expansion pack already, not on Kickstarter, all by itself.
I mean, let's go through the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Or the highlights of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Over 9 million on Kickstarter.
Check.
They're in Target selling the starter set.
Check.
And now they're announcing their first expansion sourcebook, not being Kickstarted, coming straight out to hardcover and digital copies.
Yeah. They're doing well.
It seems like this game is going to have a long life if it has so much fandom around it right now.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what we see from Avatar in the next year or two, but it seems like Avatar is the perfect example about how to bring IP to tabletop gaming.
Yeah, and if you want to take a lore that everyone's already excited about and give it people that are hungry for more, there's a way to do it that can literally actively engage fans with your brand. I think it's incredible.
And we're going to see some big things from Avatar come next year when the new show is released.
Yes.
So I assume that the game is going to just continue to crush. And speaking about things that are crushing,
Can't believe it.
massive sales, we were going to talk about Bank of America and how they hit Wizard of the Coast with some bad news again, or how D&D has announced an outline for the new Dungeon Master's Guide in 2024. But that's not the most important news this week.
I can't believe
It's that Arby's
can't
released a dice set.
can't.
Yes, the second time. 2021, they released one.
Yeah, when I heard this, I was like, what simulation am I living in that Arby's is like, everybody look out, roll those hats. Arby's is coming in with its own personalized D&D dice.
Now,
I
fast food is no stranger to tabletop RPGs. Of course, Wendy's released their own tabletop RPG
insane.
setting and game.
also insane.
Arby's did this in 2021.
Yeah.
There's something with fast food that is kind of like these national chains kind of moving into tabletop,
Yeah.
trying to connect with that fandom, that demographic.
Yeah, and I think it bodes an interesting spot for tabletop RPG community that these like huge international brands are recognizing it as a space to invest in. Obviously, it did really well. I think it's sold out to the point that people were having trouble getting their hands on it. But I mean, we were talking about it. If Taco Bell came out with some dice,
Oh, if Taco Bell, what would Taco
buy
Bell
it
release though?
in a second.
Would it be? I feel it'd be like miniatures. Like here's the thing, Taco Bell. If you're listening, partner up right now with Dimension 20, and make a Taco Bell.
Oh my God, the Crown of Candy.
For the Crown of Candy for
Whoa.
Raveny, for the food people. You have an opportunity, Taco Bell. Take it. Think outside the game table.
Wow, that was incredible. But
Yeah.
so a little like a chalupa monster. Is that what you're
Little
envisioning?
chalupa
Ray?
monster. A little a quesadilla mount.
You know, I laughed when I first heard this story. I was like, Arby's making a D&D dice set, and then like in that same breath, when I was like, oh, I'm immediately I'd buy Taco Bell dice. So
Yeah.
it's like maybe, they're smarter than we realize.
But national chains kind of moving into this tabletop RPG
Yeah.
space is really interesting.
Yeah.
Arby's, which is, I've never had an Arby's, just because there's none around here.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is the last time where you're going to see a fast food chain do something with tabletop. But what's next, and what can we
Yeah.
expect?
It will be Taco Bell. As of right now, I'm manifesting it, and I'll be the first to buy.
And that's our news for today.
Yeah.
Avatar: The Last Airbender is releasing its new source book. It's absolutely crushing, it seems, as they're in target $9 million Kickstarter and releasing this new book without even having to go to crowdfunding. And they're set for a lot of success come next year when the new Avatar TV show launches. Of course, Darrington Press going to be at Gen Con this year, and it looks like they have something that might compete in the D&D space.
Yeah, directly with Wizard of the Coast, their own fantasy-based RPG.
And fast food is not just about food anymore. It's also about finding the demographic and moving into these niche spaces as we see Arbys and Wendy's continue to move into tabletop. That's all the news we have for you today. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next week. Bye.